are you?
Hi, my name is Jessica Dewhurst, and I'm the founding CEO of the Justice Desk, which is a human rights-based nonprofit in South Africa, and I'm also a member of BTS Army in South Africa.
Yeah. So you said South Africa. So where in South America?
I live in Cape Town, South Africa, but our organization works across South Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and we're also expanding into West and East Africa as well.
So let me ask some personal questions right now. So what is the happiest memory of your life?
I think the happiest moments in my life was when I was working in one of our projects and we had one of our young boys who was a member of a gang, and his family were leaders of gangs, and it was part of his almost inheritance that he had to become a member of the gang and become very violent and engage in that whole lifestyle. And we taught him about human rights, we taught him about the rights of women, we taught him about equality and the fact that he has a choice to live a different, happier life. And I think the moment that he made that decision to not only leave the gang, but he went on to save the life of a woman, I think that was the happiest moment for me in my life, because I realized that no matter what people think, they often write people off and they often think people are too far gone. And I think he showed the world that it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you came from. If you're given the choice to be a better person, anyone would take that choice. And so I think seeing him do that was the best moment of my life.
And what is the saddest memory of your life?
So the saddest memory of my life would be when, after many years of doing my human rights work, we're exposed to a lot of high trauma. So like things like rape and gender-based violence and murder and human trafficking and child abuse. And we try to stay strong, we try to look after ourselves, we try to make sure that the things we see don't affect us. But unfortunately, after many years, it did start to affect me, and I fell into a very deep depression because of that. And it got to a very, very bad stage where I wasn't safe anymore to myself. So I think the saddest moments of my life was realizing that something was very wrong with me and that I needed to get help. So it was the saddest moment because it was the lowest I'd ever dropped in my life. But I guess it was also the happiest moment because it was the day that I realized that I couldn't do this alone and that I needed help and I needed people around me who loved me to also take care of me. I couldn't take care of the world and have no one take care of me. So it was that sad realization that I had fallen to rock bottom mentally and physically. But it was also incredible because it meant that I could reach out for help and help was there. Yeah.
What makes you angry?
Human rights violations. What makes me incredibly angry is that we live in a world where we think some people are more valuable than others. And that can be based on your race, gender identity, nationality, the language you speak, various different reasons. The world tries to put us against each other. And that makes me very angry because as human beings, we are inherently valuable. We have value purely by being human. So what makes me angry is that in this world today, there are people who are still trying to convince others, especially young people, trying to convince young people that they are less valuable unless they own certain things or look a certain way or behave a certain way. And because of that, that almost gives people permission to violate the rights of others. And nothing makes me angrier than that because I believe in the value and the worth of every single human being. It doesn't matter where you're born. It doesn't matter what you look like. None of that matters. If you are a human being, you are the most precious person. And when anyone else tries to convince someone else differently, that's when I get angry. And that's when I will always step up to defend the rights of people from that.
What excites you? What makes you happy?
What makes me happy is when people mobilize, when people come together for each other, when people realize that our life is not just meant to be lived for ourselves, but is meant to be lived for others. What makes me really happy is to see young people when they realize that they have the power to make a difference. When you see someone who's almost given up on the world realize that the world is a beautiful place, that you know, no matter how much bad there is in the world, there's always so much more good. So what really makes me happy is when I see people come together, when I see people love each other, share stories, embrace diversity, focus on a common cause, and work towards positive change. I love to see that, because I think the world thinks that it's just the superheroes that change the world, and it's just the politicians, and it's just the superstars. Whereas what I've seen throughout my life working across countless countries in the world is that it's the everyday person that changes the world. The little person, the person in the home, in the community, in the school. And when someone realizes that, when they have that realization that actually I'm important and actually my voice matters, and actually I can change my community, that makes me so happy. I love that.
That makes me happy too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Do you remember what were your dreams when you were young?
Ever since I was young, I always knew that I was going to be a human rights defender. I didn't know the words for it when I was young, but I grew up in a country where we had a history of racial oppression. It was called the apartheid regime, which told the world, or told the people in our country, that if you were white, you had human rights, and if you were black or a person of color, you had no rights at all. And I grew up in our country. I was born 2 years before that regime ended. And we call ourselves the Rainbow Nation because we're so racially diverse and religiously diverse and culturally diverse. We're so diverse in our country. We have 11 official languages, 12, I think now. And I grew up in this country where everyone was saying we're free, we're equal, we finally got our freedom. But I was never seeing that. So even though we're saying we're free, people of color still live in poverty. And people who are white predominantly have more privilege. And even though we say that, you know, we have equal value, why was it that when someone of color speaks up in my country, no one listens to them? But when I speak up, someone listens to me. So from a young age, I realized that there was something very wrong. And that even though we were saying the words we're free, even though we're saying the words we're a democratic country, even though we're saying, you know, oh, look at our buildings, look at our, you know, technology, look at all these things. But if human life is not valued, and if humans are not seen as equal, then for me, that means we failed as society. It doesn't matter how much technology, how much infrastructure, how much amazing things we have. If the human life is not valued, we have failed as society. And so I think from a very, very young age, I realized that.
Now that you became a human rights defender, your dream job, what are the specific dreams that you have at this very?
I have many dreams. I have, my big dream is that we'll eventually live in a world where our value is not determined by kind of who we should be, who the world says we are, what we look like, what we have, but that our value is based on the fact that we're humans. I have a very, very strong passion for the incredible continent that I'm from, which is Africa, and my country of South Africa. Africa continues to be exploited and colonized to this day. From our resources to our talents to our people, we are constantly underestimated and taken advantage of. And a huge dream for me is for the world to wake up and realize the incredible power, passion, talent that Africa has. All 54 countries. I think that still to this day, people are heavily, they have a mindset of valuing people based on race. And I think we pretend that that's not as big of an issue as it is anymore. And I see it every single day. Where you're born, the color of your skin, the language or the accent you have. And my dream is that we will inspire enough everyday people, so people within the communities themselves, to be able to mobilize, to be able to empower themselves to lead their own change. I don't believe it's up to the superstars and the politicians and the humanitarians to change the world. If it was up to them and if that would have worked, it would have worked by now, but it hasn't. The world is getting worse. So for me, I believe true power comes from the everyday person, them realizing their value, their worth, and their ability to create effective change in their community. So my dream is for enough people to get that message, to realize that they are responsible and they have ownership of their communities, and they are the right people that are meant to effect that change. So I would love to see more human rights education. I'd love to see more diversity in all spaces, including conferences like this one. We need to make sure that everyone is in the room, and that, I think, for me to be the only person from Africa at a conference and I'm a white South African, that's not okay. That's not okay. We need to make sure that when we talk about diversity, we're talking about global diversity. The world tends to forget that Africa exists, and I think that that's very strategic. And I think that my biggest dream is that we recognize Africa for what it is, which is an incredible continent with incredible people, incredible cultures, incredible everything. And we deserve a seat at the table.
Now I'm getting into the questions about BTS.
Okay.
So how did you get to learn about BTS at first?
My job gets hard, but it gets very hard when you see things like mothers with children on their back fighting over a piece of bread or a cup of water. When you see families digging in soil to try and rescue their family members, it gets too much. And I think at that point, as I mentioned before, that's when it got too much. After doing this work for 15, 16 years, it got too much, and I got very sick mentally, and I had to get some care. And it was during that time that I was almost in a bubble. I couldn't feel anything. I didn't have emotions anymore. I couldn't connect with people anymore. I was in a very dark place. And I remember I was lying in bed. I could not get up. I hadn't been able to get up for a long time. And someone in my house was playing, just on YouTube, was playing some music. And by I don't know how it happened, but a BTS song came on. And it was the first line that I heard, which was, the song was Not Today. And it was, to all the underdogs in the world, a day may come when we lose, but it's not today, today we fight. And I heard those words, and I think in our work as human rights defenders, we are often seen as the underdogs. We're often seen as the people who are, unrealistic, and, we think we're going to change the world. And, people always kind of belittle us and our mission and our purpose. And so we're often referred to as the underdogs. So when I heard that, it's not today, today we will fight. We're going to get up and we need to keep fighting. And I heard those words, and then it continued in Korean, which was a language I'd never heard before. So I was like, what is this? So I think I eventually managed to get out of bed, and I walked in and I replayed the video, and I watched it. And that was my first introduction to BTS. And I Googled the translation of the lyrics, and I read the entire thing. And that was the moment. I was incredibly inspired by that. And it really gave me the strength to get up and get the help I needed mentally, so that I can continue the work that I do. And then, yes, I joined BTS Army in South Africa, joined an incredible community of South African Army. And together, that's when we all started doing a lot of work in our communities to affect change.
We often get inspired by poems, movie, and song. It happens. But we take that as an inspiration and we move on to our lives, right? But here, you are inspired by one song, but then you're becoming an army. I think it's two separate things.
It's more than that, yeah.
Yeah, so what do you think that made it possible? I'm wondering whether there was a specific moment that you realized that, yes, I am army.
Yes, yeah. No, I must say, my other style of music that I mostly listen to is rock music. So 30 Seconds to Mars, Metallica, Our Last Night. Those are usually the groups I listen to. So when I started listening to BTS, people were like, what are you doing? Why is this important to you? And I think, as a human rights defender, our biggest job is to change mindsets. So it's to help people to really reflect on themselves, their own actions, their thoughts, their behaviors, their choices, often things that are conscious and unconscious, and things that they're learned and taught by society to be. And watching BTS and hearing their message of loving yourself, which is something that particularly young boys in our country, they are taught to be hyper-masculine, hyper-violent. They're taught that gangs are things you should join. They're taught that you need to have multiple sexual partners. They're taught that you always respond first in violence, that if you feel anything, that's not good. And they almost take away your man card because of that. And I started seeing, these men behaving completely differently. And as I mentioned, like one of our projects in Bokoro, we work with girl survivors of rape and gender-based violence. And our main message with them was to help them love themselves, because as a girl survivor, you're taught it's your fault. You're taught that what's happened to you is your fault. So our girls had lost all confidence. They had lost their love in themselves. So the message of BTS to love yourself and to speak yourself was something that our girls had almost lost. But through the project, they were able to find that again. But the problem is girls aren't out there murdering girls. The problem was our boys. What is going on with the men in South Africa? Why are they mass murdering our women? Why is there mass rape? Why is our gender-based violence rate 5 times the global average? So we also had to look at our boys and say, what is going on with you? And that's when we were able to see the incredible pain and incredible hurt that our young boys were feeling as well, and the journey that they needed to take to also learn to love themselves and to learn that to step into that kind of box that society tells them to be in, that is a choice, and they have a choice to step out. So I think BTS's entire message is about choosing. It's about having a choice. And I think that's the difference, is our world tells us that we do not have a choice. We have a role that we have to play as people. And who you are is predetermined by society. And I think BTS's message was that no one can determine who you are or the life that you will live except for you. And I love that message. As a human rights defender, that's what I stand for, which is you have a choice. You have the choice to live a life for justice, or you have a choice to live it for other things. And for me, that message was reinforced through their music, through their vulnerability, through their constant ability to self-reflect and change. Because, again, I'm a white South African. I come with so much privilege. I have to constantly reflect on, am I taking up too much space? Am I speaking on behalf of other people who should have this space? What are my actions that could be infringing on people's rights, whether I realize it or not? I need to be able to reflect as well. And having a culture of reflection is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But we've been taught to never question. And if you're wrong, don't mention it. Don't say anything. Don't learn. Just, keep moving. But I think BTS message is to keep moving. Determine who you are. Find your voice. Find your identity. And my main message at this conference was realize the concept of Ubuntu. I am because you are. We cannot exist alone. And if my rights are protected and your rights aren't, that is not okay. And I think J-Hope's new album that's also just come out is probably going to be my all-time favorite, because the message is very similar, that we're living in this world that is telling us all the wrong messages, and they are lying to us. And we need to realize that we have a choice to decide whether to believe them or not, but we also have the responsibility to go out there and make sure that other people realize that they have the choice as well.
So do you think actually the BTS and their messages had significant impact on the differences that Justice Desk's activities made?
Yes, definitely. I mean, and it started with me, because as the organization CEO, I was like, push. Humans' lives are at risk. There's a gang shooting. Oh, there's, another, every 30 minutes. Oh, another woman's been murdered. Another rape's happened. Come on, team, we gotta go. And I never learned to love myself. I never learned how to protect myself. So through learning that message, our entire team has been able to do that. And as a result, we have mental health policies in our organization now that we've never had before, where we take care of each other, where we have mental health days, where we have a psychologist on the team now, where even our entire projects that we do, there's now a mental health component to every single one of them. Because how can you teach a child who's traumatized, who has PTSD, just because by walking to school they've walked past a body? How can a child learn after they've seen things like that? But it's so normalized in our communities that we don't think it's traumatic, and we don't realize that the harm it actually has on us. So BTS's message has had a massive influence on the Justice Desk and our organization. We've been able to grow and transform because of their message. And I think we critically engage with them a lot in their messages. Whenever a music video comes out, we will all watch it together, and we'll all kind of look at it as a team, because we're all army. And we'll look at the lyrics and we'll dissect it together and kind of go, do we agree, do we not agree? And it's just a great community to belong to. And I think it's one that's also helped us as a team keep our spirits alive and keep our hope alive. And in work in our type of work, you feel very alone. And I think BTS helped us to realize that we're not alone. And that's more valuable than anything.
Each question around difficult question for you. What is your number one BTS song?
It's gonna be Not Today, because that was the song that introduced me to BTS, and I think that message is incredibly powerful. Yeah, that's definitely my favorite song. I have lots of favorite songs. Some songs I don't like, I will be honest. I'm an army that will tell you what I like and don't like. But Not Today was the one that resonated with me first and still resonates with me today. Even our team, we have this joke in the office where anytime someone does something that, like, if we're talking with members of government or we're talking with some diplomats or something, and they say something that's fundamentally unjust, our team will joke and we'll say, "Not today, injustice." And that's just something that kind of keeps us going, is when people want to come and start even having conversations about violating human rights, we just say, "Not today." So that's definitely will still always be my favorite song.
Okay. And if you meet BTS in person, what do you want to say to them?
I would say that I'm so proud of them for taking this break. I think this is the best. When I saw that, like, I was so happy. I thought that was incredible. So just I'm super proud of you for that. I'm super proud of you for taking care of yourself. I'm super thankful for what you've given to the world, and I know the toll that it must take on you to do that. I want to say thank you for creating amazing music, which is changing lives. And then I would say to them, also, I need you to come to Africa. I need you to sort your stuff out, guys. Come now. If we talk about a global army and a global community, we cannot talk about world tours and then delete an entire continent. We exist. And we are as equally valued as any other army across the globe. So I would say, please come to South Africa, come to the Justice Desk. We will welcome you. We will bring you into our projects. You'd love it. I pretty much think J-Hope is pretty African anyway. He's got that whole vibe about him. His energy, his style, his everything is very, very African. He'll fit in. I think they all will. So just, yeah, I think they'd absolutely love South Africa and Africa. And I think that they would be really inspired to meet African Army. So it's time. Welcome. We're waiting for you to come.
Growing up, I was always told that we were the Rainbow Nation. I was told about the great sacrifices we had made to build a truly free and democratic nation. I watched as we celebrated year after year, hearing stories of our nation's great triumphs, and how after so much sacrifice we had finally made it. We were finally equal. At least that's what they told me. Yet what I was seeing wasn't reflecting that. Because if we were free, then why did I grow up being given opportunities based on the color of my skin? If we were equal, why did I grow up being sheltered from all the dangers of this world because of the class I was in? And if we were truly a democratic nation, then why does my voice still hold more value than others? Despite what I was told, it was in this moment that I realized that peace, justice, and true equality was not something that could be won in an election or achieved by the works of a few. And it wasn't the politicians, lawyers, humanitarians, or even the philanthropists who actually were responsible or capable of securing the future we longed for. Instead, I went to our communities, countless of them across the globe. I learnt, grew, observed, loved, and was challenged. I witnessed, participated in, and was given the gift of seeing where our true change makers really lie, and the immense power they had to change this world. I learned that true change occurs in the lives of the everyday person, one single, ordinary human being who was determined and courageous enough to stand up for what was right. I saw it in the work of mothers, fathers, teachers, friends, children, community leaders, youth. I saw it in you and in me. I realized then that we didn't need a superhero to change the world, because the power to do just that was already in each and every one of us. We were the ones we've been waiting for, and we are the ones who can truly make that difference. And so I started the Justice Desk. Because I was shown that it is in the empowerment of the everyday person where real change truly begins. It is not in just one, but in all generations. The power and responsibility to build and uphold systems of justice and peace. We have to do the work, to address injustice at all levels of society every single day alongside all people, while confronting the roles we play in upholding these systems. To protect, defend, and build a society where all people have access to their rights. Because we are not free until we are all free. We are not equal until we are all equal. And we do not have justice until each and every one of us has true access to our rights and freedoms. And we cannot bring about change until every one of us joins the fight. It has been done. It continues to be done. And together, it can be achieved. We just have to start with you.